welcome to the week of October 9th. Actually, this will be for October 10th, this forecast, and we've got an interesting pattern to discuss here. Lots of stuff going on. Sure, a lot of you have been following along with the hurricane that is going on currently, and that's going to be making its way into the Florida Gulf coast here pretty soon. Should be early tomorrow afternoon when the eye makes landfall. And if you're in southeast Alabama, southwestern Georgia, obviously Florida, hopefully you're taking your precautions for that. By the time this gets out, it'll be making its way in, so hopefully you've already done that by the time you hear me say it, and you're probably not thinking about hunting at this point anyway. But you've probably heard me talk about several times, if you've been following for a while, that these hurricanes they're just energy powerhouses, and when they move inland, they push all that energy into the jet stream, and so you'll actually see the jet stream get pushed to the north, and you can see that happening here. The hurricane's here, and then the jet stream's getting shunted up to the north, and it'll continue to do so as this hurricane makes its way in. It'll just keep that up there, and it has an effect on the jet stream pattern for 2 or 3 days after it does its thing. And so when this time of the year, it does have an effect on the forecast, at least for the few days that surround it. But anyway, we got a decent front moving across the central to southern plains, and it's just starting to make its way into the western Great Lakes area, and this is gonna kind of make a curve to the east, and then we'll see it really kind of push into the Great Lakes region and cool down all the way to the lower Mississippi Valley, kind of in the western Tennessee, Kentucky area, and should get down into the 50s all the way down to Alabama, at least northern Alabama. So this front actually is going to give a cool down for most of the country. You guys have been pretty warm down there in the southeast for the last, really up until this point, and once this front moves in, you'll finally get that fall type air coming in. So that's something to look forward to for those of you that live in that area. Obviously, you got other things going on with the hurricane and everything, so let's hope that everyone down there stays safe and that there's minimal impact. But this does look to be a pretty strong storm, so if you're in that area, again, be sure you're taking your precautions. And so as this low pressure system moves off to the east, we're going to have a big high pressure behind it from that front, and then this low pressure area here starts to develop up in Canada, and it's going to trickle down across the kind of the western Great Lakes area and drag some more cool air with it, and that is going to push all the way again almost pretty much down into South Texas and towards the Gulf. So we're really starting to get into the fall pattern here, and pretty much everybody's starting to see those fronts. So at this point in the season, I'm gonna start transitioning to talking more about other aspects of the weather as far as hunting goes, because the story from this point forward is really going to be like pretty much 2 or 3 times a week there's going to be at least a weak front that moves in, and then as we get towards November, they're going to get stronger, colder air, so on and so forth. But yeah, the Great Lakes area, it's really looking to cool down, really settle into fall here pretty soon. Going to start seeing mostly low 50s or less for highs in the Great Lakes region, and then in the southern states, at least the central southern states, so let's say central states, so if you drew a line from here across, go up 5 to 10 degrees for daytime highs from the Great Lakes area, and you're going to have sporadic fronts like I was talking about, where you get down into the 40s, maybe into the 30s. So yeah, this is kind of the long range outlook here. Just a bunch of fronts moving in. It's going to be a really good time over the next week or two to get out and be hunting. It's just, we're really settling into the season here as far as weather goes. But this big front here is the main one for this week, and everybody's going to get a cool down of some sort. And then as we move forward, more to come. So that's the main temperature story there. As far as precip goes, I know North Dakota and Arizona, even Flagstaff, Arizona, got some snow, but the Dakotas have started to see some snow. Obviously, the Rockies are getting snow. That's no big story. If you live out there this time of year, it's time. But snow is starting to become more of a factor in these forecasts, and it looks like into this weekend, starting maybe around tomorrow morning. Parts of Nebraska, you're going to maybe get some snow up into the Dakotas, and then as we transition into Thursday, Minnesota, looking like maybe a couple inches there. And then once we get beyond that range, the snow forecast kind of gets wishy-washy and not all that reliable. But in the short term, maybe some light snow in northern Wisconsin. What in the world is going on in my phone? Some light snow in northern Wisconsin, possible. Snow in Minnesota and the Dakotas looks pretty likely. Let's just double check that with a couple different models here. And yeah, so the NAM is pretty much backing up that story, at least for the Dakotas and Minnesota. It's a little bit more aggressive as far as totals go. We're getting up into 7-8 inches here with these purples. So it's a good chance that everyone in this region is definitely going to at least see snow. Someone pointed something out to me the other day that people don't necessarily know exactly where they're at on a map, and if that's the case, I encourage you to find that out, because that's a pretty necessary piece of knowledge to know, at least just going in your day-to-day life. But especially if you're watching these videos, it'd be good to know exactly where you live. That's just something that never occurred to me. I've always known where my geographic location was, but anyway, if you're in this area, be expecting some snow this weekend. And then I'll actually be hunting up in this area, just south of Lake Superior. Iron River, Wisconsin, I believe, is where I'm going. I'm going up with a buddy. He's got some property up there, so we could be getting some flurries in the stand this weekend. That'll be exciting. I've always enjoyed sitting in the stand while it's snowing. Oh, excuse me. So that's kind of the snow, what the snow looks like. And then rain. Obviously, this region down here is getting ready to get soaked from the hurricane. So, nothing crazy out of the ordinary there. It's a hurricane. But then everywhere where you saw that snow, it's not just going to be where the snow's falling, where there's going to be precipitation. So on the southern side of that storm system, where it's above freezing, there's going to be rain falling. So all of this area where you see the yellows and greens, there's going to be quite a bit of rain, up to an inch in pretty much this whole area. And then there's storms moving across the Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois corridor at this time, and parts of Indiana, and that's going to be dropping some rain there. And then as we move on into the weekend, parts of the Northeast, not necessarily associated with the hurricane, but parts of the Northeast are going to be getting some precipitation as well. So I know it's been wet for a lot of people lately, and a lot of people are going to continue to see rain, but that's just the fall for you. In the fall, we kind of transition into a more active jet stream, which just gets more precip going. So that's nothing that we don't expect. We can just come here and look at the radar, if you the simulated radar. So this is what the radar might look like based on what the models are forecasting over the next several days. So again, This is that big storm system associated with the rain that's going to be falling over the northwestern Great Lakes area, and as well as the snow up here. That freezing line is going to be about right in this region, and so everywhere up here, you're most likely going to see snow. Everywhere south of that is going to get rain. Um, and then the southeastern extent, the cold front part of that storm system is going to push this way, which is going to drop the rain in the northeast. So, I like to do this when I am getting ready for my hunts, and I'll just go through this with you guys real quick because obviously I can't do this for every location. I'd be here for days, but I'll just go through with you what I'm going to be looking at for the weather of my hunt this weekend. Today's Tuesday. You'll be watching this Wednesday, so this is several days in advance, which I'm not going to get the most accurate forecast possible this many days in advance, especially on a small scale, but this will at least give me an idea of what I'm going to be looking at. Oh, got the burps tonight. Yeah, so I'm going to go to sector view and Midwest, and like I said, I'm going to be hunting up here in northern Wisconsin around this region, and so I'll be there Friday through Sunday. So if we move this into Friday morning, I'll probably be on with this front that's moving in. I plan on hunting the mornings just because it's going to be so nice. And this pattern right here is going to be pretty awesome. I mean, it's high 20s with a light wind out of the west. It's maybe a little bit. This is forecasting basically 5 to 10 miles an hour, so that's perfect. And what I'm going to watch is how this expects the wind to change over that period, and it looks like it's going to be pretty consistent up until dark. So I can go out in the morning anticipating a west wind and pretty much play that all day. Obviously, when you get to your location, you got to put out some powder or milkweed or whatever you prefer to use as your wind indicator and check the wind at your specific location. You can watch tons of videos from the hunting public and then some previous Weather 101 videos that I have on the site about how the wind behaves in small scale areas. But this is just looking at the prevailing wind. This doesn't tell you anything about what it's going to be doing at your location. And then getting into Saturday, I'm kind of maxing out the NAM here, but it looks like Saturday morning there's going to be a south wind, and it is supposed to be a little bit warmer on Saturday, so that's kind of to be expected since it's going to warm up just a little bit more. But I'll go ahead and come to the GFS so I can go out just a bit further. And so Saturday morning, GFS still showing south to southwest wind, so they agree on that. And again, about 5 to 10 miles per hour in the morning, and then it looks like it's transitioning to be a little bit stronger in the afternoon. And that's, you see how these isobars are getting a little bit tighter here across Wisconsin, and when you see that happening, you can expect the wind to pick up just a little bit. And the reason for that is because basically you have a quicker transition from high to low pressure, and wind flows from high to low pressure always. So this is, didn't mean to do that. So you can see this big circle here. This is the center of the high pressure, and you can tell it's high pressure because the wind is flowing in a clockwise manner. High pressure systems, the wind flows clockwise. Low pressure, it flows counterclockwise. And so this is all high pressure here, and these isobars are getting packed tighter together, and as they do, the wind's going to pick up. And then when this system moves off to the east, it's going to shift the wind to be more westerly, which means it's coming from the west. So it picks up midday to about 10 to 15, maybe 20 mile an hour gusts. Still pretty solid for hunting. It's going to be a tad warmer than it was the day before, but still pretty cool in the 50s. I would anticipate in rural areas it's probably not actually going to hit 50 up there, but it may get close. It just depends on the exact location. And then moving into Sunday, another front's coming in on early overnight Sunday, and that's going to shift the wind to be more out of the north. This is kind of the leading edge of the front here, and so that's going to give me a north to northwesterly wind. And interestingly enough, it's maybe 10 miles an hour as that front pushes through, but then it drops off pretty substantially once the initial leading edge of it passes through. And that's, I don't want to say uncommon, but it's less common. Typically with cold fronts you see more blustery conditions after the front passes through, but it looks like, based on the way these isobars are set up, that the northern part of the front is going to be weaker than the southern part, because if you look down here in Oklahoma, these are packed pretty tight together and the wind's a lot stronger. That's 15 to 20 knots, about 15 to 20 miles an hour. So good news for me. I mean, I hunt obviously anytime I can, but I would rather have mild winds as opposed to really strong winds. I've hunted a lot of days of really strong winds and just never felt like it was very good for me. But I'm sure there's a million other hunters out there that would tell you different stories, but that's just my experience. So I'm not too upset about that. And again, it's going to be pretty cool for most of the day in the 30s. So it's actually been like high 70s here in Madison for the last few days. So I really got to get my brain in cold weather mode before I head out there. So that's just kind of what is the situation for my hunt. I encourage you to go and do this same sort of thing when you are planning your, if you care this much about the weather. A lot of people would just really pull up their phone and see what it says and then they go on it. But if you really like to look at what the weather's going to be doing while you're hunting, this is a great way to do it. And it looks like, again, through starting, when is that? Starting Thursday into Friday, maybe some light snow up in this part of the state. And then I also want to look at precip accumulation. Rain Wednesday, and then maybe just a touch on Thursday night, and then it looks like it stays mostly dry throughout the weekend. So that's good news. Not a huge fan of hunting in the rain, but as you've heard from some podcasts that I've done, it's not necessarily bad to hunt in the rain. Oftentimes you can have good success if you're targeting mature bucks specifically. And let's see, so we've got all the basic stuff covered, so let's just check out what the severe weather forecast looks like. This is for today, Tuesday, but we're not concerned about today because it won't be today when you watch this. So day 2, this is Wednesday, which is the day you'll be watching this, so technically this is for today. Marginal risk for this area. Marginal is 1 out of 5 risk category from the Storm Prediction Center. Looks like kind of a generic severe weather situation. Scattered thunderstorms, some severe, and isolated chance for a tornado and some damaging winds. So if you live in this area, keep that in mind when you go out tomorrow. Don't get caught in a nasty thunderstorm. And then if we go to Thursday's outlook, it's going to be for the Gulf Coast, which that's going to be probably associated with, or excuse me, not the Gulf Coast, the southern Atlantic coastline, and that's probably going to be associated with Hurricane Michael. So anyway, and then we can go to, we've already looked at basically what the precipitation should look like, so let's just look at a long range outlook real quick. This is for the next 2 weeks temperature wise. 8 to 14 day outlook. Temperatures across this region look to be below normal, and with all those fronts we saw coming in, that's kind of to be expected. Above average in Florida as always, and then the western states are going to be a little bit higher, so higher than normal. But that's kind of the rundown, and I hope everybody has good luck over the next week before I see you back here again. And it looks like it's going to be really good with all those fronts coming in. I'm pretty excited to get out. It's going to be great to finally be in the woods again. So, yeah, anyway. Good luck to everybody, and we'll see you back here next week for the next forecast. And thanks for checking it out.